Hello, and welcome to Season 3, Race 7 of my F124 Mine Team Career Mode with Rockstar Energy Racing. And we are here in Spielberg at the Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix. Of course, it's a sprint weekend, so that means we have a sprint and then the race. Qualified 14th for the sprint. And it's all very strange. I, I don't know what it is with this game. No matter how good the car is, it just refuses to qualify, and I could do a bang on great lap, and for whatever reason, like in a certain section of the track, this goes across the board really, I'll lose like 6, 7 spots in like a second. It's just really, really strange. I don't know. It's just really weird. Like there's no reason for me to be qualifying this low. Um, it's just freaking weird. That's all I can say. But the grid is sort of mixed up. You got Mercedes barely in the points, both Ferraris barely in the points. Well, they would be if this was the race, but the sprint, of course, it's eighth or higher. Reminder of the championship standings: Fernando Alonso is the current point leader, um, and we currently lead the constructors. So, and that's where things stand as of now. So, I guess in a bit of an update. So, I did get the PlayStation 5 so that I could play F125. Because of course that game is only available on the new consoles, which they're the new consoles, but they've been out for 4, 5, 6 years already. Um, I'm gonna try to get through at least season 4 on this. I thought I was gonna do season 5, but at this point, I don't know if I can get through 5 seasons, so I'm gonna try 4 seasons. Um, and I guess in the intermediate period while I'm trying to finish this, I think I'm just gonna um, just play races on F125 just to get the feel of it, just to get the hang of it, um, before I really dive into what I would like to do on that game. Um, and yeah, I guess that's the plan going forward is to do that. Um, so of course one of the big things is that they've revamped the My Team career. Not just like not only did they change a lot of things with it and of how it's handled, but you don't just have the option to be a 11th team. You could still be your own team, though it's changed in the sense that you are no longer an owner driver. You play as the team principal or the owner or whatever, and then you pick one of the drivers to play as in the race. Um, and you could do that with your custom team, or you could do that with one of the two fantasy teams that are in the game, which are the Connor Sport team from the Breaking Point story, and there's the I forget, is it AXP or APX GP? I think it's Apex GP team from the F1 movie, which honestly I'm probably gonna do that if I do anything with the career mode on that game. It's probably gonna be that. Um, so yeah, I think that's probably what I'm gonna end up doing. But enough talking. Let's go into the sprint and see if I can get any points.
Forget pit stops, forget fuel management. It's pedal to the metal all the way here as we get ready for today's sprint. It's one of the shortest laps on the calendar today then, with 7 rights and just 3 lefts, making up the 10 corners of this high-speed circuit. Turn 2 is barely a corner at all. They'll be flat out through there, a left-hand kink into the uphill braking zone of turn 3. Turns 1, 3 and 4 are all potential opportunities to overtake. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Oscar Piastri completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Albon, Fernando Alonso, Verstappen, Gasly, Perez, Russell, Ocon, Leclerc, Stroll, Hamilton, Sainz, Golden Boy, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Teo Pourchaire, Behrman, Sargent, Joe, Hulkenberg, and Dennis Hauger. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out. And alongside me in the commentary box today, a man who I always look up to, which is easier said than done, Anthony Davidson. Well, they say that a change is as good as a rest, and whilst there's not much rest on show in the sprint format today, there's definitely a change to what we're usually seeing on the track. And let's talk momentum with this driver. What a sprint it was. They start at 0 once again for today, but with a huge amount of confidence, surely. Well, they'll definitely be glad that there's not a sprint race today. Let's face it, the sprint couldn't have gone much worse, but what we're looking for today is a reaction. Now, sadly, things didn't work out for them last time. It was a bad race. Question is, though, can they recover today?
Yes, they can, Crofty. You've got to put it behind you. Whatever happened last time, I was always told as a driver, park it, forget about it. Obviously, feel the pain when it happens, but then you can't dwell on it and carry that through to the next race. So put it behind you and just crack on with this race coming your way now.
Here we go then. The formation lap is underway ahead of today's sprint. As all the cars take their positions on the grid, the final preparations have been made, and all that's left is for the drivers to deliver on track.
That start was okay.
DRS is being enabled this lap. We can use DRS when you're within 1 second of the car ahead and in the DRS zone. Look out for a bit of understeer when trailing the car ahead. They're going to be giving off dirty air, which is going to affect our tyres, so try to get past. Okay, gap to the car ahead, 2.9 seconds. Okay, here's the gap that we're trailing the car ahead by. 5.3 seconds.
Okay, keep an eye on that gap ahead, please. 8.3 seconds. Here's some information on Russell for you. Okay, they're slowing down. It seems like there's some kind of problem with their car. Okay, clear. Okay, so gap to the car ahead, 11.0 seconds. Yellow flag. Let's use overtake and burn off some of this energy. Okay, this is your final lap of the race. Right, the gap to the teammate ahead of us, 13.1 seconds. And gap to the car in front, 12.3 seconds. Okay, pick up rubber and bring it home.
So that wraps up the sprint race, but there's still more action yet to come this weekend. We've got qualifying and, of course, the Grand Prix.
And that was the sprint in Austria. Some good fortune enabled us to get up to P5. Made a lot of passes at the start, and then Max Verstappen had an engine failure near the end of the race, one of two in this race, because Zhou Guanyu also dropped out. And actually, I guess there were technically three, because George Russell had problems towards the end of the race, but he did not drop out. But Lando Norris wins ahead of Alonso, Piastri, and Alexander Albon. Myself, Gasly, Ocon, and Leclerc round out the points finishers. I actually think it's interesting. So, Alonso leads the standings. Me and Piastri are pretty close on points. Piastri just passed me for second. And then it's like a dead heat almost for fourth place between Norris, Albon, Leclerc, and Verstappen. So that's certainly interesting there. And yeah, we'll go right into qualifying for the main race, and then go from there. Let's see if I can try to change the setup. Maybe go for one more because it for this track it defaulted to the increased top or the increased top speed, the low drag, I guess, setup, or I guess I should say the low downforce setup. Um, I wonder if part of the issue is that I'm sacrificing the corner speed, and that's what's getting me. So maybe I should do a balanced thing here and see or see if putting it more towards balanced helps me through the corners and gets a better lap. I'm gonna take that down a little notch, see if that helps with the qualifying, or if it remains the same. So yeah, we'll go right into qualifying and see how we do.
High up in the mountains here at Spielberg, it's time for qualifying on what will be the fastest laps of the season. Stand by for qualifying at the Austrian Grand Prix.
So qualifying ended up being about the same, really. Ended up in the same spot practically. Um, Probably gain a spot because Verstappen will likely take a grid penalty. Um, but maybe Russell too, because Russell did have a problem. But we shall see. We shall see. All right. So just looking through everything here. Not really much else to do. So let's dive in right into the main race.
Welcome from the beautiful Styrian Mountains for another chapter in the story of the Austrian Grand Prix. The Spielberg circuit then is situated 700 metres above sea level, with just 10 corners making up one of the shortest laps of the season. One time around here is a distance of around 2.6 miles, with the best overtaking chances into turn 1 or the tight uphill of turn 3. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, and Fernando Alonso completes the front row. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, Gasly, Russell, Ocon, Hamilton, Stroll, Oscar Piastri, Golden Boy, Magnussen, Sonoda, Albon, Theo Pourchaire, Behrman, Sargent, Hulkenberg, Hauger, Verstappen, and Zhou Guanyu. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? And striding into our commentary box to join us today, the man, the myth, the legend, Anthony Davidson. And let's talk momentum with this driver. What a sprint it was. They start at 0 once again for today, but with a huge amount of confidence, surely. Well, they'll definitely be glad that there's not a sprint race today. Let's face it, the sprint couldn't have gone much worse, but what we're looking for today is a reaction. Now, sadly, things didn't work out for them last time. It was a bad race. Question is, though, can they recover today?
Yes, they can, Crofty. You've got to put it behind you. Whatever happened last time, I was always told as a driver, park it, forget about it. Obviously, feel the pain when it happens, but then you can't dwell on it and carry that through to the next race. So put it behind you and just crack on with this race coming your way now.
Here we go then, the formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? Well, we'll soon find out. As the cars make their way back to the starting grid to form up and get ready for lights out, let's hope the race ahead today is a thrilling one that will go down as a memorable Grand Prix in the history books.
Okay, the start was fine. Let's try and move. Now use DRS. DRS now available. Watch out for understeer in the wake of the car ahead. Try to get past as quickly as you can. Push, push. Tyre condition still looking good. Gap to your teammate ahead, 2.5 seconds. Alonso's just taken the lead. Okay, gap ahead, 2.7 seconds. Okay, you're losing a small amount of time to the car behind. Let's keep pushing. Verstappen's in first place. Okay, gap to the car in front, 4.0 seconds. The car ahead is a second a lap faster than you. Okay, gap to the car ahead, 6.5 seconds. Alonso's just got the lead. Caution, caution. Okay, be aware there's an incident in the next part of the track. No overtaking through the yellow flags. Green flag. Okay, here's the gap that we're trailing the car ahead by. 5.3 seconds. You've lost some time to the car behind. Okay, keep an eye on that gap ahead, please. 6.7 seconds. We're approaching the pit window now, and you're going to be on. Right, the gap to the teammate ahead of us, 15.8 seconds. Okay, so gap to the car ahead, 8.6 seconds. Confirmed, we'll receive you at the end of this lap. Copy that, hards next time we box. Pitting this lap then, come into the pits at the end of this lap. Copy that, hards next time we box.
And it looks like the pit crew are out in the lane and ready to perform their magic on the car. They're going to be aiming to achieve the fastest pit stop time possible.
Okay, stay clear of the white line on the exit. We'll receive a penalty for dangerous driving if you cross onto the track. Remember to adjust your ERS mode and your MFD if you need to. So you know, we're getting some strange readings from a couple of the sensors. I don't think you need to be worried, just some bad data. So keep doing what you're doing. I'll let you know if we notice any genuine problems. And gap to the car in front, 2.6 seconds. The car behind you's just come in for the hard tyres. Car behind, running hard tyres. You're running low on ERS. Reminder that you can play around with ERS modes in the MFD or lift sometimes and ease onto the brake pedal for some manual recharge. Fernando's in the pits. Use your overtake button more. It's time to utilise some of this energy. Come on. Okay, gap ahead, 12.0 seconds. Okay, gap to the car in front, 13.2 seconds. Come on, you can win that place back. Okay, gap to the car ahead, 15.9 seconds. Okay, we lost the position. Try to keep focus. Okay, here's the gap that we're trailing the car ahead by. 18.3 seconds. Okay, keep an eye on that gap ahead, please. 21.1 seconds. Let's use overtake and burn off some of this energy. Okay, so gap to the car ahead, 22.3 seconds. At the moment, the car behind is lapping faster than us by around a second a lap. Okay, final lap. Let's... Final lap, final lap. Push, push. Yes, thank you. Thank you for all your hard work out there. That was a really strong drive and a great finish. Well done.
Here comes the checkered flag. All eyes on the car approaching. Your winner today, Fernando Alonso.
Well, another race victory today. You could clearly see they're driving out there with very little pressure. You know they have the performance. They know they've got the car under them as well. And this has done no harm, of course, for their championship chances.
A show-stopping performance from the three drivers approaching the podium right now. It's been an interesting Grand Prix, that's for sure. It's been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Alright, and that was the Austrian Grand Prix. And the dominance of Fernando Alonso continues. He wins again, fairly handily. I ended up getting to up to fourth on the initial start, but then got into the podium spot after Lando Norris dropped out of the race with an engine failure. So some big names suffered engine troubles this weekend. the running order there. Sergio Perez had a great run. He finished in second. The two Alpines, great weekend for them. Qualified 6th and 8th, finished 5th and 6th. Max Verstappen, incredible job going from 21st on the grid after his grid penalty to 10th to score a single point. Also, a couple drivers actually had grid penalties. Oscar Piastri had one. Obviously, Verstappen did. I think one or two others had grid penalties as well. But yeah, so the constructor standings, obviously, with a 1-3 result, that's going to extend our lead, which is what we want. We're trying to win the Constructors' Championship, and we are well on our way to doing that. I want to talk about the driver standings for a second, because, you know, I was bemoaning the fact earlier that, you know, qualifying continues to be a struggle for me in this game, and that just makes the weekend a lot harder. But at the same time, when I look at the point standings, I'm sitting in second, all things considered. Yes, I'm well out of the lead for the championship on the driver's side, but again, look at that point total. I am in second place, the only other driver north of 100 points, and like if Alonso was not present, I would more than likely be leading the championship, or at least in a close fight with Oscar Piastri, maybe a few points behind him. But that sort of just shows you that, yes, I'm bemoaning the fact that I haven't been running well in qualifying, which is putting me on the back pedal for the race. But again, when you look at the championship standings, I mean, the only position I could be in besides this one is first, in terms of like the potential. But it's really just come down to the fact that Alonso's just had an incredible year behind the wheel of this car, and yeah, and again, it's like I said, I bemoaned the fact of my qualifying efforts earlier, and they continue to be a struggle. But at the end of the day, I'm getting the results I need, and if we're considering best of the rest outside of Alonso, it's me. I'm the best of the rest. Yep, so there you go. That was Austria, and based on the sprint as well, I scored the second most points out of anyone outside of my teammate. So it's frustrating because I feel like I could be doing a lot better, particularly qualifying, but in terms of the results, I'm getting the results I need to contend. Because not only are we leading the Constructors' Championship, but we are, you know, like I showed, we're 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship, which is, you know, in theory, that's what you want, is to be in that position.
Morning, boss. This week's income from the sponsors has cleared, and we're making good profit against our running costs.
Guess I'll go with Carlos Sainz.
Not an easy decision, but you handled it well. Thanks.
New sponsor.
We had a major issue on the production line earlier this week, so the entire development package for the weekend has failed. Any redevelopments will need to be ordered from the R&D screen.
So that upgrade will come in after the British Grand Prix instead of before, which is a little annoying. But yeah, if you look at my, and this sort of goes to the point of just, mentioning earlier, if you look at my season results, I had the one DNF in Australia, which would have put me a little closer if I had been, in the points in that one. Outside of that, look at my results: first, fifth, third, fourth, second, third. I'm getting podiums. I won the opening round of the season. I'm finishing outside of Australia. I'm finishing inside the top 5 every single race. It's just that Alonso is, again, look at his results: fifth, second, and then 4 straight wins. It's like, I'm doing what I need to do, but there's nothing more I really can do because look at what my teammate's doing. So, yes, Alonso doing incredibly well, running away with it at this point. But yeah, it should be interesting to see what happens at our next race, the British Grand Prix in Silverstone. Can Alonso go for 5 in a row? We will soon find out. But thank you for watching, and I will see you for the British Grand Prix.